Hi everyone, Trevor here. Just wanted to give a heads up at the start of the episode. The morning we were recording this episode, there was an ongoing upset around the use of the terms fat admirer and chubby chaser in the title of a webinar Dan was going to be giving for NAFA's Ally Week, as well as his identity as a chaser. Since we recorded this, Dan's seminar has been canceled and NAFA has issued a statement apologizing to those who were upset and shared screenshots of the Instagram posts where most of this upset has occurred. I suggest checking both out before listening to the episode for some context into what the four of us were and are still going through on a personal level. On to the show.
Welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. I'm Michael, I am a chaser, and today I am a sore soccer boy. I played soccer last night, which was great, except that I, as happens, got cleated on the top of my foot.
Ouch.
And it hurt.
Ow.
Usually I kind of shrug that off, but that one stung. So
Wait,
I'm
does that mean someone stepped on your foot wearing those spiked shoes?
stomped is a little more accurate.
Well, but they're not metal spikes though. They're not golf shoes.
No. That's very illegal. No, not metal.
Oh, I guess I'm picturing golf shoes.
No. Oh, God, you would break feet with that now. No, it's just gonna be a little sore, but I have to move this week, so I'm not relishing the limp during the move.
Well, my name's Don Marshall. I'm a big chubby guy living in sunny Hollywood, and today I am a gameless Game Boy. I need a new game. I need something fun and video gamey that will just.
There's a lot of good games coming out this year.
Excite me.
They just haven't come out yet.
I recommend Tag. Hi, my name is Dan Alirio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. I'm in all sorts of moods today. I'm in a tumultuous, oh, is that the ocean? Whoa, kind of mood.
Yeah. We definitely won't get to that later. That's not relevant to anything.
Stay tuned, listeners. Stay tuned.
God.
I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and I'm here in LA too. We're all in the same room.
Thankfully.
I'm having a weird Saturday so far, gotta say. I woke up being like, ooh, it's going to be a chill Saturday. I'm bringing cookies to recording. And then I'm dealing with some stuff right now, some fires.
There's some fires to be put out or fanned, depending on
It's,
how you want to take it.
But yeah, I brought the cookies.
Yes, the cookie update.
Yeah, cookie update.
Cookie update 2022.
I posted, some of you who follow me on Instagram saw, I posted the Midnight Diner Pancakes cookie,
Yes.
which everyone has now sampled.
This is
And
Trevor's cookie creation from his own.
Get ready to be jealous,
Delicious.
listener, because Don and I have been able to try them.
It's
and
so good.
they're really, really tasty. I think the thing that I liked the most, I mean, there's all of these delicious flavors going on, which Trevor can tell you about, but there's a lot of textures layered in as well. Like there's kind of this like crispiness, but then there's like a slightly different kind of crispiness, and there's some nuts, I would assume toasted.
And there's some flavors
nuts.
in there
There's no
that
nuts.
are.
What's the thing that looks like a nut? The darker.
Okay, so listener, gather around.
Buckle up.
So the Midnight Diner Pancakes cookie, the dough, it's a maple dough, which I used maple sugar and maple extract. The mix-ins to the cookie are chocolate chips, espresso chips,
Oh.
caramel bits, shoestring fried potatoes,
I saw those.
and
yeah.
what I think Michael thinks is a nut is the signature mix-in that I invented, waffle maple crunch, which is waffle cone that I broke up and tossed with butter, maple sugar, a little salt, and milk powder.
Ooh.
This is inspired by Milk Bar's cornflake crunch that they do for several
Yes,
of their products,
which is so good too.
and I was worried when I baked it because it got darker than I thought. And also at first I'm like, oh, like I hope this gets crunchy as it cools, because it was like, this seems soft. But then it turned into this wonderful waffly brittle.
There was an alchemy that happens. Definitely let your cookies cool, listener.
Yes.
If you're making your own cookies, that's an essential part of the process for sure. But they were delicious. They were a crunch and a chewiness that I always look for in cookies, and a crispiness in the bottom.
I just always look for cookies, but these were really good.
Yeah, I will share the recipe. There's a lot, and there's some
Oh, come on. This, I mean,
Specialty
if you ever
ingredients.
wanted to prove that baking cookies is rocket science, it would be these cookies.
Well, I think to me, it seems like more ingredients because I went through a whole prototype phase. Anyway, let's get straight into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I brought cookies for everyone. And we need you to bring us your Valentine's Day questions.
Yes, please.
We're coming up.
New listeners, for Valentine's Day, we answer questions about relationships and romance and dating and sex. And
All the good stuff.
I think the most probably sexual kind of vulgar only in that it's like a
Very
detailed
blunt.
act, a very blunt act.
Yeah.
Was in our first Valentine's Day episode, and like everyone I know listened to that.
It was early enough in the show that everyone, like casual friends, were just like, "Oh, you're doing a new thing. Let me check
Yeah.
that out."
My aunt listened to it.
My godmother listened to
Yeah.
it.
And we put
Luckily,
the,
she's awesome, but my God.
Well, I think that's good. Now they're fully equipped for Chub Chaser sex.
we put the disclaimer on the front, and that I think just made people more interested.
Don't look here. It's really gross. I don't know.
Anyway,
But yeah,
so send us your questions. We'll have the social media info at the end, but you can email us or write us over social media,
Anything you want to know about what can a chub do with a chaser?
and vice versa.
yes.
Yeah.
But you're gonna send us your Valentine's mail, but we have some mail for y'all today.
Yay.
It's the mailbag. So this is a follow-up to the listener that sent us the question about kind of dealing with kind of being slimed by chasers and like kind of how to handle chasers commenting on their body in like a disappointed way. So this is a follow-up to that.
Right. So our listener wrote us back after hearing the episode and said, "Hi guys, I just wanted to say thanks for reading my letter and having a thoughtful discussion about it. You're welcome. Thank you for writing us. The solidarity and support you gave really made me feel better. Sadly, it's a situation I have been in more than once. You all helped me realize that maybe I need to A, be a little more choosy, and I'm not obligated to sleep with anyone just because they show interest, and B, I need to be kinder to myself. I laughed at Trevor's idea to throw them out the window. So did we. Don really helped me to see that I'm not alone and that other people experience the same thing. I also liked how Michael talked about how it can happen to chasers who gain weight as well. And thanks to Dan, because he also pointed out that I don't have to coddle other people at the expense of my own welfare. I just wanted to say thanks, and I hope that today's episode helped other people as much as it helped me. Love to you all.
Yay.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I love when mailbags end up creating that kind of a discussion because it makes our job easier, believe it or not.
What should we talk about? Oh, let's talk about the thing that people wrote
So,
us.
like somebody has a really interesting situation that we can also, relate to and try and help out with. So thank you for writing in.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to follow up because I like the idea that you can kind of see how people like the two that we did in December, and you can kind of see how people like run with these revolutionary ideas we keep spouting around, like,
Treat people with respect.
yeah, and
Holy moly.
love all kinds of people, including the fat people. So thank you.
It's
If you
revolutionary.
have any, I know. If you have any mailbags, letters, advice you want to send us, maybe hold on to it for Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Maybe-
Or send it now,
Yeah,
knowing
no,
we
we-
can hold on.
well, no,
to
that's
it
what I
for
mean. Like
Valentine's
maybe send it, but like for the Valentine's thing. Yes,
It's not too early. That's what you're saying.
it's not too early, and it's never too late. Except if it's after Valentine's Day, and then it's too late.
Let's get right on to pop culture.
That's right. So in the New Yorker, there's this great article about Bridget Everett titled Bridget Everett is Larger Than Life. The comedian survived waitressing, karaoke, and the alternative cabaret circuit before creating and starring in Somebody Somewhere, her autobiographical coming-of-middle-age series on HBO. And it's sort of this deep dive into her life and her history and her past. And she's a really interesting person. I feel like, so her brand of comedy is very much that like in your face kind of raunchy, like no apologies, which kind of reminded me of Nicole Byer and her stand-up special that's on Netflix. Very like sex forward, and she closes out most of her acts by picking a man from the audience and sitting on his face. So if that gives you an idea of the kind of personality we're dealing with, but she's this beautiful fat woman who has her own show.
I love the picture at the top of the article of her in this white leotard with how
do you
brown
describe?
hat.
It's like
a
a
tiara type
like a
thing.
wig with a feather
Feathers,
crown on top
yes.
of it that looks like kind of something out of Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
It's wild and very interesting and kind of awesome. And she has like fierce written all over her face. Like it is a look.
I have not seen. I saw a preview for somebody somewhere because I've been watching, and just like that, that's kind of been what I've really been into, and it just looks very sweet and funny and just like sincere, and I'm excited to see it. A few people messaged us about it, and I already had this article locked and loaded.
Yeah,
so,
we're on the same page. We don't want to say we're ahead of the curve, but Trevor is very on these things. So
yes,
but thank you for.
We always love when you suggest stuff. Check it out. I will probably let it pile up a little because I like to binge stuff. I don't like to have to wait a week.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, check it out. It's heartwarming, and I just love seeing the opportunity for fat actors to get to portray fat characters in a way that like is very sincere and personal to them.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it has that kind of, Shrill wasn't autobiographical, but it has a similar kind of vibe to it, which, is a good thing. It's a very in-depth sort of deep dive article. You can check it out at the New Yorker. We'll share the link. But yeah, good to have some positive stories to start the day out. No reason why.
Yeah. So this is we're veering,
careening wildly over the Atlantic
to the sun. Which so we've covered a lot of stuff from the sun. There's stuff where I've saved it and just like not been like, I don't really feel like
this is the British tabloid, The Sun.
Yes. But this, I was dubious at the headline, but the pictures grabbed me. It's ahead of the curve. I'm a size 22 and I met my fella on a plus size dating app. People ask why he's with a fatty, but he loves my curves, which is like totally on brand for the Sun.
Yeah.
Especially the whole like paragraph length headline. But the photo shoot for this article is like the best photo shoot I've seen of like fat people, but also when they've covered chasers or fat admirers, like
couples.
The couples, and like just the most, I don't know, well shot. Everyone's well dressed. It's just a very bizarre, like they took care to really make everyone look good.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if like the Georgette Cully is the author. And like, I'm curious to see the inception of this, like what was written versus like what got edited and like spun and put together. Cause like, it's actually I feel like a well-written.
Yeah. There's a lot of, once you get past the headline, which is, a clickbait headline, you definitely get a lot of, like it's mostly quotes, first of all, from these women, as opposed to like editorializing and adding their own slant onto like how they're going to misconstrue the words. But it's a lot of quotes from these women who have found through the focus is on dating apps, chasers, or I guess fat admirers, guys who are into bigger women, and specifically not just the sexual aspect, but that like, oh, he loves me, he will take me out on a date and not be ashamed or like hide me away. Like we have real feelings for each other and he's attracted to me and that's awesome. And I'm attracted to him. Like there's an element that comes back a couple times of like, as a fat woman, I'm not actually attracted to fat men. I like slim, muscular guys, and that's okay. Everyone has their preference.
And there's something in all these articles, because I've been quoted in articles like this, and that's a whole other series of stories. But there's this thing where the point of view of the article is like, no, it's real. It's actually possible. It's not a scam, because the supposition is that fat is the opposite of sex.
There's also a weird supposition in all of these articles that I've never quite been able to wrap my brain around of like, is there an expectation that fat people will hook up with fat people?
Oh yeah. No, like, you upset
why?
Because they're considered in the same league as each other, and nothing upsets the general public more than people dating outside their league.
Maybe I won't say that because it's stepping in hot water, but it's definitely that perspective of like kind stay with kind. Like you stay with your people, we'll stay with our people. We don't mix them.
And it's that condescending, like, isn't it nice he has someone?
But it's weird because it seems very specific to fat, right? Where it's like on every other, there's a spectrum of attractiveness with like attractiveness, right? It doesn't matter attractiveness level of a fat person. If they're fat, that's its own category that can only go with fat people in mainstream thinking.
Well, that's because you've overlapped. In that case, you've overlapped stigma with attractiveness. so that in stigma trumps.
Right. I was going to say this earlier, and I hope I'm not stepping in it. It's not the same. I'm not saying it's the same, but there is a similarity to people saying, Black people do not date my white daughter. Like,
Yeah.
Like, you stay with your own kind.
I can see what you're saying with that. Yeah.
which is obviously
I will say that's definitely something you can feel in the Chub for Chub community. Like, I'm fat, you're fat. Why won't you date me? And if you're not dating me, well, what do you have against chubs? I mean, after all, you're fat. So I think there can be parallels there.
So a big part of this article is talking about how I am old. I'm not a One Direction person, so I don't think I'm saying his name right. Zayn Malik, maybe?
I think it's Zayn Malik.
Zayn Malik. Zayn Malik from One Direction is on one of these apps they talk about in articles, Woo Plus. And I like seeing that he's on it, but also like, I feel like, okay, like just let him be on the app and like not necessarily like screenshot his profile and blast it on the Sun. But people talking about like how monumental it is to see that like one of the One Direction guys is on an app and he's, dating plus size women.
And I'd like to point out that for some reason, the media believes that is a newsworthy event.
Yes.
A traditionally hot, good looking guy who dates fat people. That's news. I mean, that's how I've gotten on.
I mean, that seems to be how
I've
all
gotten
the
media.
articles are.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All of them are like that.
It's so staggering that we are going to issue a press release on it. And there's a really nice piece where he's quoted as saying something like, I'm paraphrasing, of like, yeah, it basically, I date all kinds of women, but I'm really into fat girls. I mean, he doesn't say it that way.
Yeah, that's more or less what he said.
But there's this idea of like, sure, I'll date a thin woman, but that's not where my heart is. That's not where I live.
Yeah.
And I think so often, like I've encountered this when I've dated guys where they'll say like, well, you don't just date fat guys, do you? As if like, that would be, because that would make you a fetishist. You have to, you have to at least pretend to like thin people,
Right.
so that I don't occur as this fetish object for you. Like, okay, fine. If that's where you are, then yes, I in my life I have dated thin people, and I no longer do so. I find it unfulfilling.
Once again, I think this is like, it's something. It's,
I think it's actually pretty good given
that it's the Sun. It's
given
amazing.
that it's the Sun. It's amazing, but it's also very respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, starting to show off with good vibes.
Oh, stop it!
It's just, it's a weird Saturday.
It's a weird
It's a weird Saturday.
And who knows what the week will hold. But we're moving on. It's Michael, cue it up.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. My arms are out. I'm ready to swing off the building with Spider-Man.
Let's go.
Yes!
It's Fat Watch 2022. Oh my God, it happened.
You knew it was coming.
Everything's better with an eagle.
Yeah. Oh, that lifted my spirits. And this actually, when I saw this, lifted my spirits. Actress Allison Tolman, who is currently killing it on Yellow Jackets, which I think I'm the only one who watched it. Maybe we have some listeners that watch it. It's wild. After you finish the episode, go watch Yellow Jackets. And she tweeted a plea to writers and showrunners to basically stop making fat jokes, to stop writing, like fat lady at the movies as like when you mean annoying lady at the movies. in scripts.
Yeah. And I think the most helpful thing about that, because, we've talked about like not writing fat jokes, and the most helpful thing she does is she explains what is a fat joke or a bad description of a fat person in your script, even if it's not in the dialogue, that you don't necessarily think it's a fat joke, but it still comes through as something that is really negative and insulting. And so like, it's not just, making an actual joke about somebody's appearance. It could be talking about the numbers on a scale, what somebody eats, what size their clothing is, exercise and move, like other things that are very much related to the fat experience that is typically used to denigrate fat people. And then, as Trevor was saying, like also not putting that stuff like in a script, you have a lot of description text that the audience doesn't ever read. But, if
they see it.
Well, the people who read the script will see it. Like anybody in the industry who's handed that script will, so like if you just see the actor, it's just whoever they cast, right? Like this is Lisa, and that's Lisa going about her day, and the audience just sees Lisa. But in the script, it'll say Lisa, a thin 20-something who's, all out for herself. But like saying that she's thin is as a microaggression. Like that doesn't actually need to be there unless it's part of the story that she has to be thin for something else in the story to change or affect
Right.
her.
So I think so often a lot of screenwriters and directors will use fat or thin as shorthand for we like her, we don't like her.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
positive or negative.
Yeah, that's the
Because the example is that she gives is brilliant. A fat lady in a movie theater, what you meant was an annoying lady in a movie theater. But if you say fat, that's really the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I read a lot of scripts for a living, and I will say fat is just generally, like when I read fat as a descriptor for a character, it really is just a delay in me finding out what negative trait they meant.
Yeah.
When she says the audience only knows the values you assign to different body types if you have characters saying lines about them. But what about the rest of the script? That's your crew, the writer's room, everyone in the office, executives, creative partners, all the people helping you make your show.
Yeah. And that's the, perpetuating that way of writing about fat people is really damaging, even if the audience isn't necessarily experiencing it. Everybody who's creating the show is, and that's bad enough. And it's gotten a lot of replies and retweets and
articles written about it.
I retweeted it, and I'm barely on Twitter.
Yeah. So thank you,
Yeah.
Allison Tolman. And oh my God, Yellow Jackets.
All right. I think it's time.
Okay, so we talked about the weird vibes at the start of the episode. Currently, when we are recording this, NAFA had announced that Dan was going to be speaking for
Our
Ally
Dan?
Week. Yes, our Dan.
Right
Yeah,
here?
yes, in this room.
Hello.
Giving a presentation for fat admirers and chubby chasers about allyship. And the language of the seminar was upsetting and triggering to a lot of people. NAFA since
title?
the title,
The title, but also just the very
Yes,
existence. The existence of chubby chasers and fat admirers in a fat positive political space was considered.
yeah.
What was the title?
it was allyship for fat admirers and
Chubby
chubby chasers.
Okay.
I mean, we've talked about this a little on the podcast with, there are differences. I mean, and Dan talks about this in the seminars. There's differences between like the gay fat world and straight fat world with these terms. And the point, I think, was Dan was trying to be inclusive and trying to get people who identify as fat admirers or chasers to come to the seminar.
Yeah, in my experience, no gay chubby chaser knows what a fat admirer is. It's just not a term we use. It's not part of our community.
Yeah.
And the terms have different histories that I could go into, but they're very different histories. So anyway, I advocated having both those words in the title because that's how people identify.
Yeah. So anyway, the long story short, I mean, it hasn't been in present time, it hasn't been announced that the seminar has been canceled. The seminar is being canceled. I'm just speaking as myself right now. I'm not speaking for NAFA, but like we're figuring out exactly, like I as a board member, like we're figuring out exactly what the response is going to be, which will now be out
By
the time the episode drops. All that being said, we were planning to talk this week about the like coexistence of allyship and attraction and how those two things butt heads and how they can coexist. So we're still going to talk about that, but we just kind of want to preface with like all this, like the post went up on Instagram like late last night, probably
Announcing
like,
the seminar.
announcing Dan's seminar, and people had a lot of strong reactions to it. And those are, valid feelings. I know, especially within like as men and women and, regardless of your gender identity, you experience all these things differently. So like we're talking about our personal experience here. I don't know if we have any new listeners. If you are new to this particular episode, buckle up or or this is your point where you can exit the ride.
Yeah, and let's throw some disclaimers out there like this. We are not NAFA.
Yeah.
We are not a part of NAFA. The opinions here expressed are not those of NAFA,
Yes.
even though we have a NAFA board member on the podcast.
Yes, these are my personal opinions.
These are
and
personal. And
not-
also, the opinions that are going to be expressed have not been discussed with Trevor
Yeah.
previously. And this is Don speaking. I do not want blowback from my opinions to spill on Trevor because I'm listening to this and all I can think is this is bullshit. This is utter bullshit. So I'm sorry I'm interrupting you. I'm going to shut up now. Please continue.
Yeah.
I'm shutting up.
So I don't know. I mean, let's get to it. I understand. I get it. I mean, because I even was posting earlier this week because we have listener mail from a fat woman who is looking to dip her toe into kind of dating as in plus size world, like trying to figure out how to navigate that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that like for a lot of fat people, like going into these spaces of like, you know, like bigger city and stuff, like it's not a pleasant experience if you are going into it with trauma around your own body and then having people activate that.
Yeah.
So when we are in a space of activism and like fighting for rights, fighting for, you know, being able to not be fired for being fat, fighting for proper healthcare and respect in doctors' offices, having people that kind of represent negative feelings about your body come into that activism space can be triggering and cause a lot of bad feelings.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I people who know me and know my seminars know that, you know, I hold chasers accountable for a lot.
Mhm.
And if you've listened to this podcast, you know, that is something that, you know, I talk a lot about because it is not by accident that many of these women have so much trauma around fat admirers or chubby chasers. That's not just, that just didn't happen by accident.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that chasers have to answer for. Unfortunately, you know, that's what I was going to address in my seminar, which was fat admirers and chubby chasers need to handle their shit. And here's how.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently that is not a discussion that is allowed.
Yeah. Or yeah. I don't want to hear it from you.
Let's avoid blanket statements
Yeah.
as far as like the world will not allow. There are individuals who are pushing back against that.
That's fair. But I mean, something that I talk about in my book is the taboo conversation. That there are certain conversations that are not allowed to be had because they are taboo. And they can have topics like money, religion, fat, where, and I break this down into detail and how they interact. But what I think is really important here is there is a sincere belief, and it's not just in the fat community, but there's a sincere belief among many rights organizations that you cannot commingle civil rights and sex and attraction. And I've seen this when I've talked about just gay issues. And I've had someone in the audience say, well, you're talking about gay issues. I thought we were past talking about sex. Not that I shouldn't be talking about gay issues, but the gay issues shouldn't bring up same-sex attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Because haven't we moved past that as a civil rights point? And it's like, but that kind of defines the community.
Right. So the question for me is like, if as a chaser who's an ally, if I want to participate in that space, do I need to hide the fact that I'm a chaser and just say I'm a regular Joe Schmo ally?
In my experience, yes.
That
I don't understand that.
So-
Like, I don't know why people would fight back on this.
I mean, I think part of it is there is a whole lineup of programming for Ally Weekend. Tigress, who has been on the podcast, Tigress, the NAFA board chair,
Yep.
who has talked about fat liberation before, is leading a seminar in an introduction to allyship. And part of that is knowing when to show up and knowing when not to show up.
Okay.
And knowing when it is responsible for you to be in that space and knowing when it's not. And I think it can be difficult to navigate that. And I think just as a, like, if, you know, you have a fat partner right now, I think if you were just like, you know, I have been dating, but like, I'm just kind of single right now. And this is important to me. I think it is harder to enter a space just kind of as a like thin ally. And I think just looking for guidance from people kind of already in this space.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think something that comes up for me, and I think maybe this is what you were thinking, Michael, is that, this is really, if you're a chubby chaser, this is part of our identity.
Mm-hmm.
And this is sort of ironed into our sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And so I agree with your statement that like, you got to know how to show up in the space. One of the things I was going to talk about in the seminar is understanding the context in which you're appearing.
Mm-hmm.
However, to say to someone, if this is your identity, make sure you hide that, because that's not welcome here. But pretend to take up, but you can have this other identity and we will allow that.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't think personally, I think it would be like, once again, personal opinion, Trevor Keys on LLC. I don't think you should hide that going into the space, because I feel like that's almost like a jump scare reveal.
Well, yeah, but no, not that you actually would, but that feels like the only permissible way to do it.
Yeah. And so the message is you're not welcome here.
Yeah.
Which is, message received. Got it.
But here's the flip side to it. It's like we're talking about a chaser's responsibility to try and fit in with all of this stuff. But just practically, if you are attempting to form a community, the exact opposite thing you want to do is start slicing off pieces of it. Like, we're talking about the demographic that is the most naturally aligned to the political interests of people of size are people who love people of size and wants them to be happy so that they can be full sexual beings. I don't care what their motivation is. They want to get to the same place as me.
Yeah.
So why do I need to exclude natural allies because they might find me attractive? I don't understand this. Like,
I wonder if, I'm sure this is part of it, is like feeling like a chaser is walking into the space inherently makes it a sexual conversation, when the point is like, there are so many other issues that are more pressing than dealing with just whether or not somebody finds me attractive, that I want to focus on those issues. And then if a chaser comes in, just by announcing that they're a chaser, they're guiding the conversation in a direction that feels like a waste of time.
The counter argument is that nobody's mere existence makes anything happen like that.
Right. Because if that's true, then you can never have straight men in a feminist space.
Right.
Because obviously they're going to turn it sexual.
Well, I think so.
No gay organization can exist because everybody finds each other.
Right. Yeah. Gay men can't form any organizations because we're all attracted to each other.
Let's boil it down to what it is.
Well, I think, I feel like, because this could spiral. I think the way to authentically show up in this space is as a thin ally going into a space of fat liberation. You have to, and I say thin ally as like, whether you're a chaser or not, because I think even just thin people who aren't, who don't identify as fat admirers or chasers, going into a space of fat liberation are met with reluctance often, because it's like, okay, what is your motivation? Where's your skin in this game? And I think coming from a place and looking and assessing and standing up outside of an entity, engaging in fat liberation, which, is like we have seen from our listeners who saw fat oppression within their, personal organizations and stood up and did something about that. So that is a way, as an ally, you can start the work and outside of an entity and just in your everyday life, find ways to shut it down and speak up and, engage in this in your personal, I say social media because I feel like that's where a lot of action happens.
Yeah, I get, so the way my head goes with it is like, so say somebody does that, like our listener who wrote in at the end of the year, he does that and then says, oh, Dan's having the seminar, I'll check that out, because I feel like, I could say, like, at the end I could do speak up and tell my story in the question and answer, and is excited about that. And then it gets canceled because it gets lambasted by all of the people who are offended that Dan even exists and wants to talk about this stuff and he's not fat. And then this guy now looks at that space and says, I'm not welcome here, and feels cut off from the support that he should have as somebody who is doing this on his own, but also everyone needs support. You can't be an island forever. And so looking to participate in the space and actually join with other people that you thought you were aligned with, and then being told you don't belong here, is incredibly disheartening and will probably have a damaging effect on people. Like Dan, you're used to it. You know what it's like to be, but not most people who are trying to be like you are not going to be.
Well, and I would take that a step farther, because it's not just that you balked the poor chaser who wanted to be helpful. It's that you have made it very clear that who that person is unacceptable. And if you've ever been abused by a chaser or a fat admirer, it's because of their innate feelings of unacceptability. And that's where their douchiness comes from. Mm-hmm. It comes from the fact that we're not allowed to discuss this, that if we say we're a chubby chaser, we're going to get lambasted, or we're going to get sneered at. Or as you know, I got some real good hate mail this morning when the seminar was announced. And just really vitriolic, like personal, it was awful. And what I'm saying is, if you were trying to create in a laboratory a fucked up chaser who is going to abuse people, this is the environment you create for them.
Yeah.
Well, we're literally this organization is literally planting a flag on chasers and saying predator.
Oh yeah.
I will say,
or threat,
which you got to get.
No. Sorry. I just want to make this clear. You said organization just now, and that's not.
Oh, excuse
no, not
yes,
NAFA.
Excuse me.
The people who responded to what NAFA was trying to do.
The fat activism sphere, I would say.
There are people within that space who are doing what Don just said. Yeah.
It is, I think, because maybe at some point we can have I love any opportunity just to kind of shoot the shit with Tigress, but I think also just kind of, we have had Fat Liberation 101, but there's so many layers to the history of Fat Liberation.
Yeah.
And NAFA is part of that, but then also there's all these other organizations. And part of that is because of these varied opinions on what is, fat admirers, chasers, even just thin allies space within Fat Liberation. And I think that just as the way NAFA was created, once again, this is Trevor, this is not me speaking for an entity. It was through fat admirers. Mm-hmm. And it was also initially more of there was fat liberation work being done, but also a lot of social engagement just because of how the world operated at the time.
Right.
The internet has changed the scope of how people get involved in fat liberation, the way people communicate about it, the way the spread of how people group together in fighting this fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no accident that the dating space for fat people and their admirers and the political sphere for fat liberation are widely far apart if you just walk into the space. Mm-hmm. Like if you go to a BBW bash, if you go to a Chub Chaser event, there is almost nothing on political activism there for fat people. Like it doesn't exist in the space because people are there to have a good time, and we don't want to yuck their yum. On the other hand, if you go to the political space, any discussion of people who are attracted to fat people is a third rail, is anathema.
The thing that was occurring to me is, so on this comment thread, which was on Instagram for the announcement post, a lot of people, or at least some people, were writing and basically calling for Dan's execution.
And mine too, by association.
And Trevor's.
I will say once again, because I'm speaking personally, and I guess I was being accused as an NAFA board member of being responsible for this. I had no involvement in Dan's seminar. I didn't know it was happening until I saw on the calendar. Dan had a call and there was confusion. He's like, oh, well, because I'm giving a seminar for Ally Week. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So basically, Trevor is accused of masterminding this nepotismic thing with his husband, when in fact he didn't even know it was happening until it was scheduled.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thought that occurs to me is, were there fat people responding to the fat people who were calling for the cancellation of this event, saying this is wrong, don't do that?
A little bit. And once again, this is weird because we're currently in this upset, which once again, people's feelings are justified and accurate. And I know that there's a long history of upset and severe trauma around this issue. And I think it's just there are people saying okay, well, no, but wait, this is an important conversation. And maybe we should just take a step back and maybe try to remove the triggering language and restructure it. And then there was also someone who's I think maybe it would be helpful if, his part, like, referring to Dan, like if I, as Dan's partner, were part of the conversation, just so that it's not, there's a lot, there was and is a lot happening. At the time of recording, NAF has removed the post and issued a statement like, we're dealing with this. We're being accountable, but we just need a minute because, we're all over the country and people are, that's open for comments. So there's conversations happening there. And it's all over the spectrum in terms of like people who want who are calling for the entire board to be fired versus people who are saying, I support this. There was someone who is a fat woman who is also a fat admirer saying like, I think this is an important conversation and like, maybe we should try to do it. And then like, yeah, there's a lot of nuanced conversations happening all over the spectrum, and which does include a few people, a few fat people saying this should happen. I will also say that before the comments started, it was the most liked and promoted post, and a lot of fat people I follow were sharing it because
it's a great idea.
Yes, and it is
it's the missing part of the conversation.
It's an essential part of the conversation. It's an entry point to Activision for. I know I'm saying the same thing over and over again. It's an entry point to Activision for an entire wing of the freaking fat movement.
Well, here's a question I have. Like I said, the two sets are highly disjunct, and so I'm wondering. It's pretty clear that the Fatosphere does not want me talking to them. At least the most vocal people saying this. Although, as Trevor points out, it was incredibly liked as far as
people seemed excited about it.
So my question is this: if you went to a Chub Chaser event, if you went to a BBW bash, would you want there to be some sort of fat activism or fat liberation component? Would you want a table in the vendor hall? Would you want something is that a component that people want to see? Because historically it's not been present.
I would say yes. That's for me.
Yeah. Just with how it works out. The past couple, whenever there has been a Bigger Vegas that has been kind of back to back with one of the BBW bashes, that Breeze bashes, which is it's, I want to say the proxy to Bigger Vegas. NAF has had a presence, and they actually have been at Bigger Vegas just because of the kind of overlap. And I was kind of expecting, God, given that people are calling for my resignation a week into being a board member, it's hard,
Well, after that mastermind you pulled.
With the global pandemic, I am also struggling to see beyond a week into the future. So I was expecting that there was a chance that NAFA would be present at Bigger Vegas and that I would probably have to spend some time at a table, or maybe even just I don't know, maybe do some kind of intro to fat activism. Which, who knows? Once again, I am speaking as Trevor Keyson, LLC. I am an NAFA board member. There's a lot happening. It's a crazy day so far. I think it is important for fat liberation to have a presence in these events, because I think even just that number of fat people and people who love them coming together in a celebration of unbridled just joy and pool party and dancing and just existing in a space and saying, I am deserving of love. I am deserving of sex. I am deserving of, whatever swimsuits are available at the vendor hall.
Yeah. And I don't have to suffer at the hands of people who aren't on board with that.
Yes.
I don't have to put up with shitty chasers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was going to say, as a footnote to the end of this conversation, that we're all men.
Yeah.
We're all cis men.
Yeah.
And we are in no way speaking on behalf of the female experience in the world, because there are a lot of sexism issues that are wrapped up in this space as well that we just don't have personal experience with. So, hopefully that goes without saying, but we can also speak to the fat activism side of things. We are all activists to differing degrees. So that's where we're coming from. And we would never presume to speak for the female experience.
Yeah.
Though that said, I feel like it's safe for us to speak for the male experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
And
for
when
sure.
when a organization is basically saying, when they're talking about this feels like they're pointing at male to me, right? Is because they don't. I've never heard about this being directed at a female chaser type.
No,
Right.
I do. And this was part of I have had this discussion with people about like female, like there are female chasers.
Yeah.
There are, and like in the straight space, there's the elusive lesbian chubby chaser, which people have told us to like, you should talk about this. Like, okay, we're not going to talk about this. And I don't really know. I have like a few ideas of where to find.
We need to find someone to talk about it.
Just talk about
we can't
it.
just talk
We
about
have
other
to go
people's
find
experience
somebody to
without.
share.
And it's like,
Yeah.
I think given the fact that it is such a rare, like it's like the white wolf in the woods. Like I know it's there, but like if we have a lesbian who identifies as a chubby chaser, like
We would love to hear from you.
I would love to hear from you. And also like I get it. Like if you do not really want to,
Yeah, it's not the most inviting offer at the end of this conversation.
Yeah.
I would say in general, but
We're a
especially at the end of
safe
this
space,
conversation.
but-
Yeah. And I think most of our listeners, unless we have some new listeners that are just kind of
Hell of an episode
angry.
to start with.
Yeah.
But
Not
just-
the best episode to start with, but I just hope that all of our listeners who, are chasers, are fat admirers, are, just people who love fat people who may be in a rough space after this. You are valued and you are loved, and we love you here. And Trevor Keyson LLC thinks you should be.
You've just made
part of
that the
this
title of the show.
Oh, please don't.
You've said it too many times.
I don't want that to come up when you Google me.
The podcast already does.
I know, but I don't want this episode to come up.
Yeah, too late.
It could be maybe just have it the cookie name. Anyway, our tip, we're going to be releasing a special like edition weekend update tip thing, which is not really happening because things are still kind of like in flux as we record this.
Yeah.
So we're
It's
just
going to
gonna
be for Dan's seminar.
Oh yeah.
Well, and there's some other stuff happening, but also like, it's a whole vibe right now.
But we're going to at some point play test a new method of tipping, which would be like a little 30-second preview, in between episodes.
Yes.
Like, hey, this is coming up. Check it out.
Because sometimes just there's things that pop up that are exciting and fall between episode drop dates and stuff.
Mhm.
Anyway, Don, please tell me we have a bit.
We need a bit.
We do have a bit this week. So originally when we were talking about allyhood and allyship and cooperation and working together, we had to acknowledge that there might be some organizations that maybe we are not the ideal people to be the spokesperson for.
Or the ally.
Nailed it.
So I thought each of us could just bring in, a quick idea for something that maybe we are not ideally suited to pitch.
Hold on. Michael, do the record scratch. We came up with this yesterday before
Before all of this happened.
things just kind of spun out into a weird
Yeah.
place. So
And you'd think planning the show the day before recording the show would be close enough to it to not step in it, but apparently not.
who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Mine is light and
Take us
funny
away.
and bizarre and pleasant.
Trevor, NAFA board member.
So as an example, I think I would make the world's worst spokesperson for an adult toy company. I would be terrible at it.
He gets so bashful.
I would be fascinated. Very enthusiastic, but I would also, you could hear me blush through the radio while discussing it. And the
And
maniacal
the
giggling.
The giggling is
Yeah.
what, yeah. This is for what?
Wait. It's wall mounted? That would just be me. It would just be,
Wait, you can use it on batteries?
hold on, it's solar powered? When will this ever see the light of day?
Isn't it literally where the sun don't shine?
But that's where you take inspiration. It's supposed to inspire you to go to new and crazy places.
Is this why you were doing handstands with your legs spread wide?
So what is I have to ask, because this is the bit, right? This is the follow-up question.
Of course.
What is the what is the sex toy item that you do know of currently, and what is your pitch for it? Please describe it for us.
It has to be the wall-mounted fuck machine because I just enjoy saying that. Just say it with me, listener. Wall-mounted fuck machine. It just rolls off the tongue.
Can I just say, I know for a fact that my sister and brother-in-law are in the room next to us and can hear basically everything we're
Taking
saying.
notes. Yeah.
Well, now
it's,
now you know what they're gonna get you for Christmas.
Yeah. No. Well. Anyway, that's the end of the show. We'll see you next week, or
Michael,
maybe
why
never.
don't- I think you're up next for us, folks.
Okay. All right. We'll go in backwards order. Okay. So it took me a long time to come up with one, but I think I have it. So imagine like it's, I don't know if this would ever happen these days, but you're flipping through the television channels and it's late at night and you see like one of those local infomercials pop on the screen with like shitty VHS quality filming and like they didn't edit it properly and there's like weird, awkward silence in between the lines. I would be the spokesperson for a local gym. And and it would be that like really cheesy quality of me like standing awkwardly on screen trying to sell you the gym, but I would just be standing there like, you don't need this. God, I play soccer. I can't do that in a gym. Like, honestly,
You should come if you want.
If you want to go, it's fine. But I don't know that you're going to get your money's worth unless you're really into it. Honestly, just find what works for you. It's okay. You don't really need this. And then somebody yells cut, but they left it in the commercial by accident. That would be me.
That'd be you. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my turn now.
They're very
I mean,
easy.
unless somebody has a.
No. I think I would be a bad spokesperson for like the National Mushroom Council.
Oh yeah,
Mushroom Council.
He despises mushrooms.
There's like
okay.
sometimes like I feel like I haven't seen it in a while. Like there was a lot of commercials for eggs for a while, for potatoes, which is like the National Potato Council. And I'm just trying to imagine me just like talking about mushrooms and like, oh, you can cook with them.
What's your favorite quality of a mushroom?
I mean,
Sell it to me, Trevor.
I would say they add umami, and that if some mushrooms, if you cook them enough, it's like they're not even there. I also imagine that I'd have to like just like pick up a big mushroom and like take a bite of it like an apple in the commercial.
like the onions from Holes.
Yeah.
Oh, so would you? Have you ever had beef Wellington?
Yes, I know.
Is that an
that's one of those
okay
things where it's-
application
if
of
the
mushrooms?
mushrooms are thin enough, I have seen beef Wellington with like big chunks. of
Oh no.
mushroom.
That sounds awful.
It's fine, and I do know that they have a place and they have a purpose. I
But
mean,
not in your mouth.
when I make a veggie stew for D&D, when I do my big veggie vegan stew, I put mushrooms in that.
That's what you want to hear from your spokesperson, though. Grudging acceptance of the existence of your product.
I mean, apparently there's mushrooms that like have texture of like the texture of chicken.
I mean, that's where a lot of vegetarian like meat replacement meals come from is mushrooms.
Yeah.
All right, Dan.
Well, we've come full circle down. I would probably be the world's worst spokesman for like the American Jockstrap Association. I don't get jockstraps. I just don't. They're like, okay, yes, that is an undergarment. And people, if you wear this, people will say things about you that involve sex.
So what have you had an experience where like, it was getting hot and heavy and then the pants came off and they were wearing a jockstrap and you were expected to be like, ooh, like,
Yeah, more. I have to admit, I'm more often on the other side of that. Is like, are you going to wear a jock?
oh, I see.
I'm like, I think I have one. I don't know. I haven't worn it in 6 years. I don't know.
I get asked for that a lot.
Yeah. I can see that.
So the really pressing question though, white chalk or black chalk?
That come in colors.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I'm picturing
Well done.
Dan's jocks would have little pink like teddy bears on them, I think.
Pink teddy bears.
No, I think they have little pink pigs.
Oh, yep. I stand corrected.
Little
I
pink
stand
pigs.
corrected.
Little pink pigs. That'd be adorable.
Well, terrible job, everyone. We've severely undersold all of these different products, and we would be fired summarily.
So, Trevor, if our listeners had a product they wanted to sell us, where would they go for that?
You can send us. Sorry, we got. I got tagged in a hate mail post on Instagram. We're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Only 5 stars reviews.
Yeah, we can't handle
Platforms
anything less than that
people.
right now.
It's a vibe. It's weird.
For every negative comment you see related to these NAFA posts, give us a 5-star review.
Oh, I like that.
Oh,
Please.
that'd be
Yeah.
amazing.
That's going to be a hell of a lot of 5-star reviews. See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com.
Yay. Take us home, Trevor. Please, Lordy Jesus.
I
take
don't
us
even
home.
know where to begin. You made it
Go
to
back
the
to
end
the
of the
cookies.
episode where we're here. We're here together. We're gasping for breath.
We're still alive.
And it's the National Mushroom Council.
And we have
and
5
they're
seconds
mad.
left
They're
on our
pissed.
countdown timer.
So
Watch out!
Perfect.
We hit
You
a minute and
nailed
5.
that.
We hit an hour and 5 minutes on the
You
dot.
nailed it. That's perfect.